gone. Tried a million times for you. Can't wait too long. Baby, now we're through. Already gone. Already gone. Already
I really like that I've started adding music. That's kind of cool. That makes me happy. Hello, y'all. It's me, Adorkable Blonde here. And it's just a beautiful day out, and I actually had the day off of work, which was kind of cool. So I decided I would go ahead and do a little streaming today. I know I usually don't stream on Mondays, at least not this early in the day, but I thought I would go ahead and we can read a little more. I know I took a lot of last week off. I was super duper busy. But now I got a lot done today, so I decided to go ahead and get a little reading done with everyone. So I hope everyone is having an amazing Monday, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening. I don't know where everybody is, but I hope you're having a great day today. It's actually a really beautiful day here for January. It's like 70 degrees. I have all the animals out. They're all enjoying the sunshine and wandering around, and it's kind of fun. Got the windows open too, which usually does not happen in January, but it is today. And so I thought I would go ahead and relax a little and do some reading. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this book. Whew, it's kind of tough for me, but yeah, it's kind of fun. So if you're just now joining and you've never seen me before, my name is Adorkable Blonde. I am in the United States, and I am a mom of a bunch of VTubers, and so I decided I would start to stream too. And so here I am. And I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I do play games. I am a gamer, and I do some of the little games, a lot of the old vintage games, like old, like 1982 games. Um, but I wanted to read. And the reason why is because I don't read enough anymore. I do a lot of reading for my job, and I do a lot of playing games, but I don't read books like just for me, like just for my brain. And I wanted to be able to do that. So one thing I wanted to do was to read. And I thought, you know what? There might be someone else who wants to read or wants to listen. I know it's not super duper popular or as cool as all the gaming stuff, but sometimes we all need a little downtime. And, maybe you don't have time to read. And to me, those ebooks, they're kind of boring. You don't hear anyone's thoughts. You just hear someone who, recorded it and maybe didn't put a whole lot of thought into it but I like to share my thoughts with you as I'm reading. And of course, if you want to say hello, we can always interact. I'd love to visit with you and see how everyone's doing and how your day's going and books you'd like to read. I do have to read because I'm in the United States. I have to read books that were published before 1923, I think. They have to be old enough that they're in the public domain so that I don't get in trouble with all the copyright laws. Nobody wants to get in trouble with copyright laws. So that's pretty much my only limitation. I do have um, I do have it on PDF, so once I start reading, you'll be able to follow along with me if you want to, or if you just want to not follow along and just listen, that's fine too. And the first book that I picked was I think I bit off more than I could chew here, but my first book is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And I picked a 1910. Oops, my music's still going. Let's pause. There we go. So, yeah, the book. Oh, yeah, it's 1910, and it's a translation, obviously, because I cannot read Chinese. And actually, apparently, this Chinese is like so old that like a lot of the words aren't even used or the characters aren't used. I don't know. But apparently there's even some discussion as to what it actually meant by Chinese translators. But anyway, this guy is translating, and he really, really does not like the person who translated the book before him. He is always throwing him shade and giving like academic slurs and saying he's ridiculous. And anyway, so this version that I'm reading has a whole lot of extra stuff with it. But it's kind of fun, it's kind of interesting, kind of exhausting. So what I do is I'm going to read through each chapter. I think we're on chapter 6 today, maybe 7. I think we're on 7. So we're going to read through it, and I read all the commentary as best I can, flubbing my way through the French and the Chinese characters, and I don't know that there might be some Japanese words in there every now and then, because I think there were some Japanese translations that are also referenced. And then, of course, the English. And usually I can do pretty good with the English, but you know what? In 1910, they used a lot of words we don't use now, or a lot of words aren't spelled like they were. So I sometimes fumble through some English words too, but I'm doing my best and I'm having fun and I'm learning a lot. And I had picked this book because I'd always heard things about it. I heard it was a cool book and I wanted to read it for myself. So I do have everything on YouTube if you want to catch up on some of the previous chapters. I am The Adorkable Blonde on YouTube. TheAdorkableBlonde. The Adorkable Blonde. That's where you can find me on YouTube. And of course, you can find me here as just Adorkable Blonde. I am available on Twitter. I'm Adorkable Mother on Twitter, and if you want to see me game, then you can hit that other platform, and I'm Adorkable Blonde on there. If you know that gaming platform, I'm trying to keep my streams a little separated, where I do my reading on one and my gaming on the other, just so that people don't, I don't know, maybe get disappointed if they were wanting to see me read and instead, oh no, she's gaming again. But nope, so just kind of keep them separate so you know which platform I'm on when you're going to start seeing me. And I guess we will go ahead and get started so we can read today. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell everybody to close your eyes. I don't have my transitions done. Eventually, I am totally going to get those transitions done, but it hasn't been done yet. So, oh well. But one of these days, you guys can all, help me. You don't have to close your eyes. But in the meantime, you just kind of close your eyes and pretend like, you just close your eyes and pretend like I had a really cool transition there. Because one day I will have a really cool transition there. So here we are. Looks like we're on chapter 6 now. I guess I did 4 and 5 last. So that doesn't sound right. I am going to cheat. I'm going to go to YouTube real quick and see the last chapter that I posted. I read 2 chapters last time, and I usually don't. But chapter 6 did not look that familiar to me. So, YouTube, come on and load. Is it loading? It doesn't want to load today. I wonder what's going on that everybody's on YouTube today. It's not loading. I haven't had any issues with anything else loading today. Let's see, there's my channel. Still thinking. Nope, 4 and 5. Yep, okay then. That's what it says. I don't know why I didn't trust myself. So, we're good. We're good to go. We're on chapter 6. I was wrong, but that's okay. So, chapter 6. Weak points and strong. Chang Yu attempts to explain the sequence of chapters as follows. Chapter 4 on tactical dispositions treated of the offensive and the defensive. Chapter 5 on energy dealt with direct and indirect methods. The good general acquaints himself first with the theory of attack and defense, and then turns his attention to direct and indirect methods. He studies the art of varying and combining these two methods before proceeding to the subject of weak and strong points. For use of direct or indirect methods arises out of attack and defense, and the perception of weak and strong points depends again on the above methods. Hence, the present chapter comes immediately after the chapter on energy. Sun Tzu said, "Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted." Instead of this character, the Yulon has in both clauses the stronger word, this character. For the antithesis between these two, see chapter 23, section 23, where, however, this second character is used as a verb. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. The next paragraph makes it clear that this symbol does not merely mean, as Tu Mu says, to make the enemy approach me, but rather to make him go in any direction I please. It is thus practically synonymous with this other symbol. Tu Mu's own note on section 19, one mark of a great soldier is that he fights on his own terms or fights not at all. Three, by holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord, or by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. Again, this part here, this is someone's handwriting from, I guess, whoever owned the book once upon a time. I'm not going to read any of those because those aren't, I don't know who wrote those, so I don't know if I care what they think. In the first case, he will entice him with bait. In the second, he will strike at some important point which the enemy will have to defend. If the enemy is taking his ease, he can harass him. This passage may be cited as evidence against Mei Yao Chen's interpretation of 1 section 23. If well supplied with food, he can starve him out. This is probably an older form than the reading of the original text. Both are given in this. If quietly encamped, he can force him to move. The subject to this is still these characters, but these clauses would read better as direct admonitions, and in the next sentence we find Sun Tzu dropping insensibly into the imperative. 5. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. The original text adopted by the Tu Shu has these characters. It has been altered to suit the context and the commentaries of Cao Kung and Ho Shi, who evidently read these two characters. The other reading would mean appear at points to which the enemy cannot hasten, but in this case there is something awkward in the use of this character. Captain Calthrop is the guy he cannot stand, is wrong, of course. See, told you. With appearing where the enemy is not. 6. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. We must beware of understanding this as uninhabited country. Sun Tzu habitually uses this in the sense of this other character. Cao Kung sums up very well. Emerge from the void, like a bolt from the blue, strike at vulnerable points, shun places that are defended, attack in unexpected quarters. The difference of meaning between this character and this other character is worth noting. 7. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. This is, of course, hyperbolical. Wang Sai rightly explains it as weak points, that is to say, where the general is lacking in capacity, or the soldiers in spirit, where the walls are not strong enough, or the precautions not strict enough, where relief comes too late, or provisions are too scanty, or the defenders are variants amongst themselves. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked, i.e., where there are none of the weak points mentioned above. There is rather a nice point involved in the interpretation of this latter clause. Tu Mu, Chien Hao, and Mei Hiao Chen assumed the meaning to be, in order to make your defense quite safe, you must defend even those places that are not likely to be attacked. And Tu Mu adds, how much more then those that will be attacked. Taken thus, however, the clause balances less well with the preceding, always a consideration in the highly antithetical style which is natural to the Chinese. Chang Yu, therefore, seems to come nearer to the mark in saying, he who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. See Chapter 4, Section 7, making it impossible for the enemy to guard against him. This being so, the places that I shall attack are precisely those that the enemy cannot defend. He who is skilled in defense hides the most secret recesses of the earth, making it impossible for the enemy to estimate his whereabouts. This being so, the places that I shall hold are precisely those that the enemy cannot attack. 8. Hence that general is skillful in attack whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. An aphorism which puts the whole art of war into a nutshell. 9. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy! Though you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible. Literally, without form or sound. But it is said, of course, with reference to the enemy. Chang Yu, whom I follow, draws no sharp distinction between this character and this character, but Tu Mu and others think that this indicates the secrecy to be observed on the defensive, and this character the rapidity to be displayed in attack. The Yulan text differs considerably from ours, reading this, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. The Tung Tien has these characters. Here we go again. Captain Calthrop's version of this paragraph is so remarkable. Oh, wow. First nice thing he said. Captain Calthrop's version of this paragraph is so remarkable that I cannot refrain from quoting it in full. Now, the secrets of the art of offense are not to be easily apprehended, as a certain shape or noise can be understood of the senses, but when these secrets are once learnt, the enemy is mastered. You may advance and be absolutely irresistible if you make for the enemy's weak points. You may retire and be safe from pursuit if your movements are more rapid than those of the enemy. The second member of the sentence is weak because these characters is nearly tautologous with these characters. The Yulan reads this for this. 11. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need do is to attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve. Tu Mu says if the enemy is the invading party, we can cut his line of communications and occupy the roads by which he will have to return. If we are the invaders, we may direct our attack against the sovereign himself. It is clear that Sun Tzu, unlike certain generals in the late Boer War, was no believer in frontal attacks. 12. If we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us, even though the lines of our encampment be merely traced out on the ground. All we need do is to throw something odd and unaccountable in his way. In order to preserve the parallelism with section 11, I should prefer to follow the Tu Shu text, which inserts this character before these. This extremely concise expression is intelligibly paraphrased by Chia Lin, even though we have constructed neither wall nor ditch. The real crux of the passage lies in these characters. This character, of course, equals this characters. Cao Kung defines this by this other word, which is perhaps a case of obscurum per obscurius. Li Chuan, however, says, we puzzle him by strange and unusual dispositions. And Tu Mu finally clinches the meaning by 3 illustrative antidotes. One of Chao Lang, who when occupying Yang Ping and others about to be attacked by Su Ma, I suddenly struck his colors, stopped the beating of the drums, and flung open the city gates, showing only a few men engaged in sweeping and sprinkling the ground. This unexpected proceeding had the intended effect, for Su Ma 1, suspecting an ambush, actually drew off his army and retreated. What Sun Tzu is advocating here, therefore, is nothing more or less than the timely use of bluff. Captain Calthrop translates, and prevent the enemy from attacking by keeping him in suspense, which shows that he has not fully grasped the meaning of. See, I knew he'd cut him down. So, anyway. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemies must be divided. Hang on just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. Had a kid with a question. I don't remember. Okay, 13. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemies must be divided. The conclusion is perhaps not very obvious, but Chang Yu, after Mei Yao Qian, rightfully explains it thus. If the enemy's dispositions are visible, we can make for him in one body, whereas our own dispositions being kept secret, the enemy will be obliged to divide his forces in order to guard against attack from every quarter. This symbol is here used as an active verb to make appear. See Chapter 4, note on heading, Captain Calthrop's making feints is quite wrong. So much shade thrown at Captain Calthrop. 14. We can form a single united body while the enemy must split up into fractions. Hence, there will be a whole pitted against separate parts of a whole. The original text has this, which in accordance with the Tung Tien and Yu Lan has been altered as above. I adopt the more plausible reading of the Tu Shu, in spite of having to refer this to ourselves and not to the enemy. Thus, Tu Yu and Mei Yao Qian both regard this as the unified force, consisting of so many parts, and this as each of the isolated fractions of the enemy. The alteration of this into this symbol can hardly be right, though the true text might conceivably have been this appear, which means that we shall be many to the enemy's few. 15. And if we are able thus to attack an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. For the Tung Tien and Yu Lan have this symbol. Tu Yu, followed by the other commentators, arbitrarily defines this as few and easy to conquer, but only succeeds thereby in making the sentence absolutely pointless. As for Captain Calthrop's translation, in superiority of numbers there is economy of strength. Its meaning is probably known to himself alone. See, he just throws so much shade. He's such a snarky dude. In justification of my own rendering of this, I would refer to Lun Yu, chapter 4:2 and chapter 7:25. 16. The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. Sheridan once explained the reason of General Grant's victories by saying that while his opponents were kept fully employed wondering what he was going to do, he was thinking most of what he was going to do himself. And his forces being thus distributed in many directions, the numbers we shall have to face at any given point will be proportionately few. Excuse me. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. In Frederick the Great's instructions to his generals, we read, "A defensive war is apt to betray us into too frequent detachment. Those generals who have had but little experience attempt to protect every point, while those who are better acquainted with their profession, having only the capital object in view, guard against a decisive blow and acquiesce in smaller misfortunes to avoid greater." I'm trying to follow along where I'm reading with this cursor. I hope you could see it. If not, it would be a whole lot easier for me to read without using it. But I'm trying. So anyway, that way, just in case you're trying to read along. Because I do know that I read fast. So 18. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks. Numerical strength from compelling our adversary to make these preparations against us. The highest generalship, in Colonel Henderson's words, is to compel the enemy to disperse his army, then to concentrate superior force against each fraction in turn. I wonder, can I? Ooh. I don't know if that's more. Knowing the place and the time of the coming battle, we may concentrate from the greatest distances in order to fight. Yeah, I think that's more. I don't think that's easier. And now I can't do anything. What's happening? Ah! Okay. Yeah, I won't do that. I tried it. Not going to work. Okay. There is nothing about defeating anybody in this sentence, as Captain Calthrop translates. What Sun Tzu evidently has in mind is that nice calculation of distances and that masterly employment of strategy which enable a general to divide his army for the purpose of a long and rapid march, and afterwards to effect a junction at precisely the right spot and the right hour in order to confront the enemy in overwhelming strength. Among many such successful junctions which military history records, one of the most dramatic and decisive was the appearance of Blucher just at the critical moment on the field of Waterloo. "20. But if neither time nor place be known, then the left wing will be impotent to succor the right equally impotent to succor the left, the van unable to relieve the rear, or the rear to support the van. How much more so if the furthest points of the army are anything under 100 li apart, and even the nearest are separated by several li." I'm going to take a drink here. Okay. The Chinese of this last sentence is a little lacking in precision, but the mental picture we are required to draw is probably that of an army advancing toward a given rendezvous in separate columns, each of which has orders to be there on a fixed date. If the general allows the various detachments to proceed at haphazard without precise instructions as to the time and place of the meeting, the enemy will be able to annihilate the army in detail. Chang Yu's note may be worth quoting here. If we do not know the place where our opponents mean to concentrate, or the day on which they will join battle, our unity will be forfeited through our preparations for defense, and the positions we hold will be insecure. Suddenly happening upon a powerful foe, we shall be brought to battle in a flurried condition, and no mutual support will be possible between wings, vanguard, or rear, especially if there is any great distance between the foremost and hindmost divisions of the army. 21. Though according to my estimate the soldiers of Yu exceeded our own in number, that shall advantage them nothing in the matter of victory. Captain Calthrop omits these characters, and his translation of the remainder is flabby and inaccurate. As Sun Tzu was in the service of the Wu state, it has been proposed to read this instead of this, a wholly unnecessary tampering with the text. Yu coincided roughly with the present province of Chekiang. Li Chuan very strangely takes this not as the proper name, but in the sense of this, to surpass. No other commentator follows him. These symbols belong to the class of expressions like these, distance, these, magnitude, etc., to which the Chinese have to resort in order to express abstract ideas of degree. The Tu Shu, however, omits this. I say then that victory can be achieved. Alas for these brave words, the long feud between the two states ended in 473 BC with the total defeat of Wu by Ko Qian and its incorporation in Yue. This was doubtless long after Sun Tzu's death. With his present assertion, compare Chapter 4, Section 4, which is the obviously mistaken reading of the Yu Lan here. Chang Yu is the only one to point out the seeming discrepancy, which he thus goes on to explain. In the chapter on tactical dispositions, it is said, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Whereas here we have the statement that victory can be achieved. The explanation is that in the former chapter, where the offensive and defensive are under discussion, it is said that if the enemy is fully prepared, one cannot make certain of beating him. But the present passage refers particularly to the soldiers of Yu who, according to Sun Tzu's calculations, will be kept in ignorance of the time and place of the impending struggle. That is why he says here that victory can be achieved. 22. Though the enemy be stronger in numbers, we may prevent him from fighting. Captain Calthrop quite unwarrantably translates, if the enemy be many in number, prevent him, etc. Scheme as to discover his plan and the likelihood of their success. This is the first of 4 similarly constructed sentences, all of which present decided difficulties. Chang Yu explains this as this. This is perhaps the best way of taking the words, though Chia Lin, referring this to ourselves and not the enemy, offers the alternative of this translation. Know beforehand all plans conducive to our success and to the enemy's failure. 23. Rouse him and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Instead of this, the Tung Tien, Yu Lan, and also Li Chuan's text have this other symbol, which the latter explains as the observation of omens, and Chia Lin simply as watching and waiting. This symbol is defined by Tu Mu as this symbol, and Chang Yu tells us that by noting the joy or anger shown by the enemy on being thus disturbed, we shall be able to conclude whether his policy is to lie low or the reverse. He instances the action of Zhuko Liang, who sent the scornful present of a woman's headdress to Sima Wen in order to goad him out of his Fabian tactics. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spot. 2 commentators, Lu Chuan and Chang Yu, take these symbols in the sense of these symbols to put on specious appearances. The former says, you may either deceive the enemy by a show of weakness, striking your colors and silencing your drums, or by a show of strength, making a hollow display of campfires and regimental banners. And the latter quotes verse 19 where, 5:19, where this certainly seems to bear this sense. On the other hand, I would point to section 13 of this chapter, where this symbol must with equal certainty be active. It is hard to choose between the 2 interpretations, but the context here agrees better, I think, with the one that I have adopted. Another difficulty arises over these symbols, which most of the commentators, thinking no doubt of these symbols in Chapter 11, Section 1, refer to the actual ground on which the enemy is encamped. The notes of Chia Lin and Mei Yao Qian, however, seem to favor my view. The same phrase has a somewhat different meaning in Chapter 1, Section 2. 24. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own. Tu Yu is right, I think, in attributing this force to this symbol. Zhao Kung defines it simply as this other symbol. Oh my gosh. Captain Calthrop surpasses himself with this staggering translation, flap the wings. Can the Latin cornu have been at the back of his mind? Oh my gosh. I think he's calling him crazy. So that you may know where strength is superabundant and where it is deficient. 25. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. The piquancy of the paradox evaporates in translation. This symbol is perhaps not so much actual invisibility as showing no sign of what you mean to do, of the plans that are formed in your brain. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. This is expanded by Tu Mu into these. He explains in like fashion, though the enemy may have clever and capable officers, they will not be able to lay any plans against us. 26. How victory may be produced for them out of the enemy's own tactics. That is what the multitude cannot comprehend. All the commentators except Li Chuan make this refer to the enemy. So Zhao Kung says this. He defines this as this. The Tu Shu has this with the same meaning. See Chapter 4, Section 13. The Yulan reads this way, evidently a gloss. Whew. This chapter is kind of a long one. I guess we got a little spoiled by having 2 chapters that were short, that we were able to read 2 chapters in one day. I guess this is this, we're just ignoring those handwritten notes. 27. All men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. I.e., everybody can see superficially how a battle is won. What they cannot see is the long series of plans and combinations which has preceded the battle. It seems justifiable, then, to render the first this by tactics and the second by strategy. 28. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. As Wang Sai sagely remarks, there is but one root principle underlying victory, but the tactics which lead up to it are infinite in number. With this, compare Colonel Henderson, the rules of strategy are few and simple. They may be learned in a week. They may be taught by familiar illustrations or a dozen diagrams. But such knowledge will no more teach a man to lead an army like Napoleon than a knowledge of grammar will teach him to write like Gibbon. 29. Military tactics are like unto water, for water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downwards. This is just a note about someone substituting characters. 30. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak, like water taking the line of least resistance. 31. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The Tung Tien and Yulan read these symbols, the latter also this. The present text is derived from Cheng Yuxian. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, 32. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. 33. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain. 34. The 5 elements, water, fire, wood, metal, earth, are not always equally predominant. That is, as Wang Sai says, they predominate alternately. Oh, look at this. A messed up page. The 4 seasons make way for each other in turn. Literally, have no invariable seat. There are short days and long. The moon has its periods of waxing and waning, waning and waxing. The purport of the passage is simply to illustrate the want of fixity in war by the changes constantly taking place in nature. The comparison is not very happy, however, because the regularity of the phenomena which Sun Tzu mentions is by no means paralleled in war. Oh, okay, so that's the end of chapter 6. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to read just Sun Tzu's words, the big words that they have on here. I just find it makes it make a little bit more sense when you don't have to deal with all of the commentary. This was a long chapter, which means I have to go back a long way. There's 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Shoo. We've been sitting down for a whole hour here. Seems like a whole hour. Feels like a whole hour. I'm going to stand up for a minute and stretch. You guys can all stretch with me just for a second before we go back and review this. If you can sit. I mean, if you're stuck at work or maybe you don't want to get up, maybe you're just laying down. You don't have to get up and stretch. I just feel like I need to get up and stretch my feet here for just a minute. Stretch my arms. Whoops. I stretched away from my camera. There we go. I turned my camera. So now you can see me. You can see my smiling face and my eyebrows. I love my eyebrows. I love moving my eyebrows. I think that's so cute. I love my eyebrows. So I hope everyone's been having a good day. Just taking a minute here to pause just to kind of get the circulation moving again here. And now we will go through and we will read just the points from Sun Tzu. So let me see here. Weak points and strong. 1. Sun Tzu said, "Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted." 2. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. 3. By holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord, or, by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. 4. If the enemy is taking his ease, he can harass him. If well supplied with food, he can starve him out. If quietly encamped, he can force him to move. 5. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. 6. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. 7. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. 8. Hence, that general is skillful in attack whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. 9. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy, through you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. 10. You may advance and be absolutely irresistible if you make for the enemy's weak points. You may retire and be safe from pursuit if your movements are more rapid than those of the enemy. 11. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need do is to attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve. 12. If we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us, even though the lines of our encampment be merely traced out on the ground. All we need do is throw something odd and unaccountable in the way. 13. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemy's must be divided. 14. We can form a single united body while the enemy must split up into fractions. Hence there will be a whole pitted against separate parts of a whole. I'm going to rearrange myself here again, try and get comfy. I don't have a computer desk. I have a whole bunch of kids, and so my kids all have all the computer desks. And so all I have is my laptop. And so I just have to sit on my bed and find ways to be comfortable. And you'd think that your bed is super comfortable, but sometimes it's just not super comfortable. Sometimes it's easier for me to sit in my chair at work than it is for me to sit on my bed all the time. Okay. 15. And if we are able thus to attack an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. 16. The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. And his forces being thus distributed in many directions, the numbers we shall have to face at any given point will be proportionately few. 17. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen the left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. 18. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks. Numerical strength from compelling our adversary to make these preparations against us. 19. Knowing the place and the time of the coming battle, we may concentrate from the greatest distances in order to fight. 20. But if neither time nor place be known, when the left wing will be impotent to succor the right equally impotent to succor the left, the van unable to relieve the rear, and the rear to support the van. How much more so if the furthest portions of the army are anything under 100 li apart, and even the nearest are separated by several li. 21. Though according to my estimate the soldiers of you exceeded our own in number, that shall advantage them nothing in the matter of victory. I will say, then, that victory can be achieved. 22. Though the enemy be stronger in numbers, we may prevent him from fighting. Scheme so as to discover his plans and the likelihood of their success. 23. Rouse him and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. 24. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own, so that you may know where strength is superabundant and where it is deficient. 25. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. 26. How victory may be produced for them out of the enemy's own tactics. That is what the multitude cannot comprehend. 27. All men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. 28. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. (29) Military tactics are like unto water, for water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downwards. 30. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. 31. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. 32. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. 33. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain. 34. The 5 elements are not always equally predominant. The 4 seasons make way for each other in turn. There are short days and long. The moon has its periods of waning and waxing. And that's it. That is chapter 6. And we're going to pop, yay, here we are, back to me. So, whoosh. Yeah, that was another long chapter. I think I need to drink more water. My mouth was getting kind of dry reading all that. But again, there's some really, it's pretty interesting stuff. And as you're reading, or as you're listening to me read, I things pop into my head. I've seen some movies and stuff where, and I can't even think of what the movie, but that one where, to get people to come out to attack something that they have to defend. And yeah, like instead of attacking on the battle, there was this one movie where the other army went and attacked the town, a nearby town where all the women and children were, because all the army was out waiting for them on this battlefield. And so it was kind of, they had the whole army scrambling, and the bad guys won that battle anyway, because they had to go defend the women and the children. And it's interesting that these same elements of war, this book, this writing's like 2,500 years old, and I don't know, people are still waging wars all across the planet. Even now, even today, there's several going on. I think actually several, I say several, but I know of at least 2, but there's lots of civil wars going on in places too. And it's just kind of crazy that you can really see all these same principles and same strategies being used. And you can see like some of these when, I'm kind of thinking of a kind of a war that's kind of in the forefront of the news nowadays, but reading some of these about how to not spread your forces too thin and to make sure people can't get behind you. And if you're the invading force, what you need to do. And it's kind of like, yeah, you can see that going on. And I'm just I have no military training whatsoever. But just reading this kind of makes a lot of it kind of shows, like, opens your eyes, I guess. I guess you can say it opens your eyes. It opens my eyes anyway, so that I can see a little bit more about what's going on, maybe understand some things. And they say that you can use this book a lot in like non-war stuff, like for real life. And I guess I need to go back through and read it and kind of think about how to apply these things. Maybe we'll do it at the very end, is just go through, read just the Sun Tzu parts and think, how does this apply in real life? How can I use this in real life? Because it's supposed to be like not just a success in war blueprint, but they say it's a success in life blueprint that can be used like in business and stuff like that. And they say that a lot of really rich people use this in their business. I don't know. Maybe they're just saying that to sell their books. Who knows? But this book has been around forever. These writings, it's not even a book. We know Sun Tzu's not making any money off of this anymore. But it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. I find it very interesting. I really kind of like it. Using my brain instead of just playing games all the time. Love playing games too. And maybe one of these days I'll take a break on here from reading. I have Winnie the Pooh too. I read a Winnie the Pooh when my brain gets really fried and I still feel like I need to read. I'll read some Winnie the Pooh. But it's fun to read. I think reading is good. It helps get your brain going and helps you learn more things. And I thank you guys for being with me today. Taking this time out. We just took a little bit of time to do some reading. Feel free to find me on Twitter or on YouTube. Find me on here, send me some messages, let me know if there's a book that maybe you'd like me to see if I can read, and find an old version of it. I was thinking I can do Shakespeare, I can do any of the old Greek writings, I can do, of course I only speak English, so it has to be something that's written in English or a translation of something so that I can see what I'm doing. But there's probably some good books out there that maybe you want to see. I think Edgar Allan Poe, if you like some spooky stuff, maybe I'll save that for October. But there's some Edgar Allan Poe. We can do some good mysteries. Agatha Christie is available. There's lots of good books to read out there that can help us learn all kinds of things. And I love reading, and I love to read to you and with you, and hope you guys enjoy it too. And so thanks for joining me today. I super duper appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I think you're awesome for joining. Not just for joining me, but because you're taking some time out to read, to do some listening to some reading, and that's always a good thing. So hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Can't hold back these feelings I have. They are overwhelming me when you look at me. Tried so hard, I couldn't take your face out of my heart.